Karen, she called out as the deflated airbag was pulled away. Are you hurt? Karen sat in her driver's seat, still gripping the steering wheel, staring at the destruction of her perfect pond. Her reflection in the water showed a woman she didn't recognize. Hair askew, mascara smudged, cardigan torn. For 30 years, she'd fought to maintain order, to keep chaos at bay, to preserve the vision of suburban perfection that Willowbrook Estates represented. And in 5 minutes of fury, she destroyed it all. Mrs. Whitmore? Officer Martinez waded closer. Can you tell me what happened here? The question hung in the air like morning mist. What had happened? Karen tried to construct a rational explanation, but every word that formed in her mind sounded increasingly absurd. She'd attacked a car for being purple. She'd issued a citation for laughing. She'd turned a decorative fountain into a vehicle launching pad. I was enforcing community standards, she said finally, her voice small and waterlogged. Ma'am, I'm going to need a more detailed explanation. But as Karen opened her mouth to defend her actions, she caught sight of something that stopped her cold. Mr. Peterson from 3 houses down was openly grinning. Mrs. Chen was taking pictures with obvious delight. The Johnsons were laughing, actually laughing, at her misfortune. For the first time in decades, Karen Whitmore saw herself through other people's eyes, not as a guardian of order, but as the neighborhood tyrant who'd finally gotten her comeuppance in the most ridiculous way possible. I think, Sarah said quietly, we should focus on making sure everyone's okay and figure out the insurance stuff later. The kindness in her voice was almost worse than mockery would have been. Here was the woman Karen had harassed, whose property she'd invaded, whose car she'd launched into a pond, offering compassion instead of condemnation. As the tow truck arrived and began the delicate process of extracting 2 vehicles from a koi pond, Karen found herself really looking at Sarah's sunflowers for the first time. They were beautiful, she realized, bright and cheerful and completely harmless. When had she become someone who saw beauty as a threat to be eliminated? The insurance adjuster is going to love this, Harold said, appearing at her side with a towel and a thermos of coffee. Honey, what were you thinking? But Karen couldn't answer because she was staring at something impossible. As the purple Volkswagen was lifted from the pond, water cascading from its doors, she noticed something she'd missed in her fury. The car wasn't just purple. It was painted with tiny sunflowers around the wheel wells. Delicate, beautiful, hand-painted sunflowers that matched the ones growing defiantly in Sarah's front garden. Sarah, Karen called out as the crowd began to disperse. Why sunflowers? Sarah looked surprised by the question. My daughter planted them before she deployed. She said they'd make people smile while she was gone. And when she came home, she'd see them first thing and know she was really back. Karen felt something crack inside her chest that had nothing to do with the car accident. She's in the military? Marines. Due back next month. She specifically requested a purple car because it was her favorite color as a kid, and I thought maybe I could make this place feel more like home for her. The tow truck driver interrupted, clipboard in hand. Ladies, I'm going to need to know how you want to handle the vehicles once they're dried out. The purple one might be salvageable, but the Honda? He shook his head. Karen looked at her submerged car, her ruined pond, her water-damaged pride. Then she looked at Sarah, who was worrying about her daughter's homecoming car, and made a decision that surprised everyone, especially herself. Take mine to the scrapyard, she said. But Sarah's car, do whatever it takes to fix it. Send me the bill. As the crowd finally dispersed and the tow trucks departed, Karen stood alone in her soggy yard, surrounded by displaced koi and the scattered remnants of her authority. Her phone, miraculously still functional despite its cracked screen, buzzed with messages from board members demanding explanations. But for the first time in 30 years, Karen Whitmore deleted the messages without reading them. She had a garden to replant, a pond to restore, and a daughter's homecoming to prepare for. And maybe, just maybe, she had some sunflower seeds to find. The only question remaining was whether Willowbrook Estates was ready for the new Karen Whitmore, or if she was ready for the community she'd spent decades trying to control. Sarah did laugh then, a genuine belly laugh that echoed off the perfectly aligned houses. You're giving me a ticket for laughing? Section 23.7. Disturbing the peace through excessive noise. Karen, you're literally yelling. The irony was lost on Karen, who was now photographing Sarah's car from every conceivable angle. Evidence, she muttered, circling the vehicle like a shark. Photographic documentation of multiple violations. But as she crouched to get a better shot of the supposedly offensive tire tread pattern, disaster struck. Her sensible flat caught on her sensible beige slacks, sending her tumbling backward into Sarah's small decorative fountain. The splash was modest, but the damage to Karen's dignity was catastrophic. Water dripped from her helmet of perfectly styled hair. Her citation book disintegrated in the chlorinated water. Her phone, still clutched in her death grip, displayed a spiderweb of cracks across its screen. Sarah rushed to help, but Karen waved her away with the fury of a wet cat. "This is your fault," Karen sputtered, pointing an accusatory finger. "Your non-regulation fountain placement created a hazard. Karen, that fountain has been there since before I moved in. Are you okay?" But Karen was beyond rational thought. She marched toward her own house, leaving a trail of soggy footprints on Sarah's flagstone walkway. Her mind raced with visions of emergency board meetings, violation hearings, and the complete renovation of community standards to prevent future incidents. She burst through her front door, dripping pond water onto her cream-colored carpet. Her husband, Harold, looked up from his morning crossword, took one look at his waterlogged wife, and wisely said nothing. "I need the spare car keys," Karen announced. "Honey, maybe you should change first. Keys. Now." Harold, veteran of 32 years of Karen's crusades, silently handed over the Honda keys. He'd learned long ago that resistance during Karen's righteousness episodes only prolonged the inevitable. Karen stormed back outside, her wet clothes squelching with each determined step. Her plan was simple. She would park her car directly behind Sarah's purple monstrosity, effectively trapping it until the proper authorities could be summoned. It was a citizen's arrest for an automotive offense. But as she started her Honda, something caught her eye through the cracked windshield of her phone screen. Still clutched in her other hand, Sarah had gone inside, but not before placing a small handwritten sign in her garden. "Sunflowers for smiles. Take one." The audacity, the complete disregard for property boundaries, the unauthorized signage. Karen's foot slammed down on the accelerator with the force of righteous fury. Her Honda shot forward like a beige bullet, aimed directly at the offending purple vehicle. Her plan was to bump it gently, just enough to prove her point about parking violations. But Karen had miscalculated two crucial factors: the distance between the vehicles and the slippery nature of her wet shoes on the brake pedal. The Honda hit Sarah's car with enough force to send it rolling backward down the gentle slope of Willow Lane. Karen, in panic, tried to stop her own vehicle, but only managed to accelerate further as her foot slipped off the wet brake pedal. Both cars careened down the street in a parade of automotive chaos, with Karen's Honda pushing Sarah's Volkswagen like the world's most expensive game of billiards. Neighbors emerged from their houses to witness the spectacle of their HOA president chasing a purple car with her sedan in what appeared to be the slowest motion car chase in suburban history. The procession might have ended harmlessly in the cul-de-sac, but Willowbrook Estates had been designed with aesthetic water features throughout the community, and Karen's own prize-winning koi pond sat directly in the path of the runaway vehicles. The physics of the situation was surprisingly elegant. Sarah's lighter Volkswagen hit the decorative stone border of Karen's koi pond and launched into the air with the grace of a purple swan. It landed in the deeper end with a splash that soaked 3 adjacent lawns and sent Karen's prize-winning koi fleeing to the shallow cattail section. Karen's Honda, carrying more momentum and the weight of 32 years of accumulated suburban frustration, followed its purple prey into the water with less grace but more spectacular results. The airbag deployed on impact, leaving Karen temporarily trapped in a beige cocoon of safety equipment and wounded pride. By the time Officer Martinez arrived, half the neighborhood had gathered to witness the aftermath. Sarah stood at the edge of the pond, her artistic eye apparently appreciating the surreal beauty of 2 cars partially submerged in a decorative water feature surrounded by lily pads and shocked goldfish. Karen Whitmore stood knee-deep in her perfectly manicured koi pond, clutching a waterlogged parking citation in her trembling fist. Her silver Honda Civic bobbed beside her like a metallic whale, its emergency lights still blinking pathetically underwater. 30 minutes ago, she'd been the most feared HOA board president in Willowbrook Estates. Now she was a soaking wet woman who just launched her own car into a decorative water feature. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the pond," Officer Martinez called from the stone pathway, his radio crackling with barely suppressed laughter from dispatch. The morning had started with Karen's ritual patrol of the neighborhood, armed with her laminated rule book and smartphone camera. She'd already issued 3 violations before 9 a.m. Mrs. Chen's garden gnome was 2 inches too tall, the Johnson's mailbox was the wrong shade of forest green, and someone on Maple Court had committed the unforgivable sin of parking their trash can 6 inches from the designated spot. But it was the bright purple Volkswagen Bug parked in front of 42 Willow Lane that sent Karen's blood pressure through her custom beige roof. Not only was it an unauthorized vehicle color according to Section 12.4 of the Community Guidelines, but it was parked 17 minutes past the visitor parking time limit. Karen had been watching from her kitchen window with a stopwatch. "This ends now," she muttered, grabbing her citation book and marching outside in her regulation beige cardigan and sensible flats. The car belonged to Sarah Martinez, a new resident who'd already rubbed Karen the wrong way by planting sunflowers instead of the approved begonias. Sarah was loading art supplies into the garish vehicle when Karen approached. "Excuse me, but that vehicle is in direct violation of community standards," Karen announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd memorized every HOA bylaw since 1987. Sarah looked up, paintbrush still in hand. "Oh, hi Karen. I'm just heading out to teach an art class at the community center. Is there a problem?" "Is there a problem?" Karen's left eye began its telltale twitch. "Your vehicle is painted in unauthorized colors. You've exceeded visitor parking duration, and those things in your front yard are not approved flowering plants. These are sunflowers. They're flowers. They're violations." Sarah's cheerful demeanor cracked slightly. "Karen, I've been living here for 3 weeks. I'm not a visitor, and sunflowers are beautiful. They make people smile." Section 15.2 clearly states that only approved plantings are permitted. Sunflowers are not on the list. Karen brandished her citation book like a weapon. "Neither are purple cars. It's violet, actually. And last I checked, this is America, not a beige prison." The word prison hit Karen like a slap. Her perfectly ordered world, her immaculate community, her life's work, reduced to imprisonment by this artistic anarchist with her purple car and unauthorized flowers. "You think this is a joke?" Karen's voice rose to a pitch that made nearby dogs whimper. "Do you know what happens when standards slip? Chaos, anarchy, property values plummet. Next you'll be telling me you want to paint your shutters teal or plant vegetables in your front yard like some common farmer." Sarah stepped back, genuinely alarmed by the intensity of Karen's reaction. "Karen, maybe you should. Don't you Karen me. I am Mrs. Whitmore, Board President Whitmore, and you will respect the rules that keep this community civilized." That's when Karen saw it. Sarah was trying not to laugh. The corner of her mouth twitched upward. Her eyes sparkled with barely contained mirth, and Karen realized that this woman, this rule-breaking, sunflower-planting, purple car-driving menace, was actually amused by her passion for order. Something snapped inside Karen's meticulously organized mind. What happened next would be discussed in hushed tones at neighborhood barbecues for years to come. Karen Whitmore, pillar of suburban propriety, guardian of grass height regulations, and enforcer of mailbox color standards, completely lost her mind in the most spectacular fashion Willowbrook Estates had ever witnessed. It started with the citation. Karen began writing furiously, her pen tearing through the paper as she documented every possible violation she could imagine. Unauthorized vehicle color, exceeding visitor parking, non-conforming plantings, potential noise ordinance violations. Noise ordinance. Sarah interrupted. I'm standing quietly in my own driveway. Your laugh is disruptive to the peaceful atmosphere of our community.